Hi. So I've been wondering about the word state lately and all the different things it could mean, like maybe a territory or a condition. What's your take on that?
For sure. When did the state come about? When the city-states came about? Well, the city-states, of course, have their own jurisdiction. That's why they call it city-states. But how does a city become a state? City means it has to have a cathedral in it. And that cathedral, by many means of crooked methods, construct a trust. Once you bought yourself into that trust, the state or the city-state now takes jurisdiction over you as the living man or the woman. So that's what the state is. The process of the state, whether it's a city-state or a corporate state or Washington, D.C. or United Kingdom or the goddess Europa, as in European, what they do is they con you into giving them your power of attorney. And they did that by creating what is known as a constructive trust. That's another way of saying, it's a constructive trust. So it sounds very nice to the ear, but in reality, it's a trust gained by deception. It's just like somebody lying to you and you fall for the lie. Trust is established until you learn of the lie, and then the trust is broken. So the city-state came into existence about 120 years ago when they wanted to claim your power of attorney to administer your affairs because you cannot read and write, you are innumerate, and you cannot distinguish between a lie and a fact. So through these deceptions and the deception of language, like getting you to believe a city-state has power over men and women, they conned you out of your word. They conned you out of your ability to form contracts. They conned you out of your ability to form trusts. They conned you out of the ability to pen a letter to get the bureaucracies or the councils to administer your wishes, because all corporations are there for the wishes of men and women. So that's what the city-state is. What is it a state of? It's a state that successfully took people's power of attorney and began to administer it themselves for their own benefit. One of the best examples I can give you about the city-state, say Vatican or the Church of England, is that once you believe in the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost, which is another word for a trust, what has just happened? Because you believed in it, you became what is known as the settler or the creator of a trust. That's called Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. And because you believe in it, and the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost are the ones that are supposed to be administering as well as paying and distributing the benefits to the baby Jesus, when you say you believe in it and you are not the trust, you are not the beneficiary, you become the settler, which is the creator of the trust, because you bought into it, and you are forced to pay into it. So Jesus becomes the beneficiary of you paying into the trust. So what does that mean exactly? Well, Jesus is not exactly around, if you know what I mean. So somebody is administering his affair, which is called a Vatican City, in place of the real man, in place of the real messenger, like in the Lord of the Rings, that they are just simply custodians until the real king or the real Jesus turns out. So essentially, the people, through ignorance and not understanding how trust works, created the city-state of Vatican City. Have I given you guys a full answer? It would really help me, or the audience as well, if you quizzed me on it.
So because you believe in it, is that when it becomes a state of mind? Like, is that related?
Yeah, so once the lie through deception and ignorance is perpetrated, the answer is yes, it becomes one of the mind. So if you lied to me, well, that lie can't exist in nature, can it? Because a lie cannot have any physical presence. Would you agree?
Yes.
So where does it exist? It exists in your mind until your mind is forced to reckon itself and thinking, wow, this guy has just described me how I've been conned out of money, my power of attorney, etc. That's why the judicial notice book, the book of the judicial notice with the global constitution, enables you to create your own court of record so you can begin to administer your own affairs and tell that de facto criminal organization calling itself governments or parliaments, which means speaker of lies, that's what parliament means, to F off. And of course, that wonderful bank called the British Museum, literally called British Museum, is also now caught out in a caught out in a dilemma, which is, do they run away or stand and face the charges? Because what does museum mean in Hebrew? Treasury. They are banking on their lies. So when you believe in a lie, it enters your brain. And if there's enough people and enough energy that puts into this lie, they begin to print money on it. And that is how a phantom finds its way into our three-dimensional world. It's like me saying, paraphrasing it again, if we all get together and build a pyramid 10 meters high, just 10 meters high, and we put a golden cap on top, and when we're ready to pass away, each one of us goes into that pyramid with that golden top, and then we will find ourselves going to the afterlife with our physical body and our spirit and everything intact. So I essentially get all of you to build a pyramid 10 meters high. I give each one of you a dose of poison. Now that you've finished the pyramid with that wonderful golden expensive top, this God is going to transport you to another world, as all the Egyptians believe, and all of those idiotic asses believe. I give you the little dose of poison, you walk yourself into that pyramid, and then, of course, I never will follow you in. I'm never going to follow you in, but I'm going to help myself to that golden top that you guys paid for. Yeah, and I'm going to pawn it in the nearest pawn shop, and that's how the con works. Anybody believing that the British Bank, that the Bank of England, the British Museum, and all museums around the world are for real, they bought themselves into a lie, a phantom. That's how you bring a eddy, a puff of smoke, a phantom into the three-dimensional realm by the sheer stupidity of people, as condemning as that sounds coming from my mouth.
What about police state? Because we speak about the mind, which feels like once you just are aware of it, things instantly change in your world. A police state feels like maybe more physical and brutal, that it's not as quick of a state to change.
Oh, I completely understand what you're saying. So I'll explain to you what a police state is. Same scenario. We unwittingly created a trust, and we unwittingly began to pay into that trust, establishing tradition. So there is now a law, because laws are created on the spot by men and women agreeing upon something. A law can be also created from one corporation coming together with another corporation. And hence a result, they can form a law. But to create a law, you must have two consenting parties, or 3 or 4 or 100 or 1,000,000, but consenting. So they've consented to this constructive trust. They've consented to Parliament, that Parliament creates laws. How can a house of liars create laws? They can't. But nevertheless, their lies have been so successful, they've got the people believing that they create laws, and that somehow they have the trust of the people. What have you got yourself now? you now have created by de facto a police state. What does the police do? What do the law enforcement agencies do? They try to force the laws that people through their ignorance agreed upon. So if it's a Christian force, if it's a Vatican police force, if it's the Swiss Guard going about their business, enforcing the laws amongst the Catholic people, it's because the people consented and have established those laws. So all they're doing, the police state, is enforcing the laws that the people have agreed upon, yes, through their ignorance. Hence, the judicial notice is, so we say, in wanting of a better word, their salvation. Yeah, that's how the police state comes about. You don't get a Nazi state coming out of the blue. They come out because the Germans, if the narrative is true of what I'm saying, and if it is true, this is how it was done. The German people during World War II, or previous to World War II, the group got everybody to believe, the Germans, as well as the Jews, that you should blame the Jews for all of these things. And once they have agreed to it, because in order to have a totalitarian state of dictatorship and ruthlessness, everybody has to lie into that system. Let's blame the Jews. Let's blame Jesus. Let's blame the scapegoat. Once that's done, the Nazi Party now comes along and creates a police force to enforce the laws that the people agreed to, that it's the Jewish people's fault. The Jewish people in turn, or through Hebrew, or the Hebrew people, create all mechanisms of fraud, like metaverse, which means death of the verse, like museum, which means treasury. And they're doing all this under people's noses, like the Ashkenazians, which is another word for a Nazi, albeit a Zionist. That's another word for a Nazi, like in the movie Matrix. So everybody wants to go to Israel and live under the control of the Zionist. That's where they're going, Zion. So what did the police state do? What did the law enforcements do? Help that process go along. Because the people so foolishly believe you got to run to the arms of the Zionist, to Zion, an underground city, an underground city-state, a subterranean city-state. That's how foolish people are. And I'm so condemning today of the people, because the nightmare scenarios we find ourselves in, the Americas, the Canadas, the Britain, the Europe, is all done by the willful, freakish stupidity of people. That's why the judicial notice is going to be a book. Sorry, I beg your pardon. That's why the judicial notice is a book that levels the plane. They just simply can't get away with lying, lying, and lying. As Abraham Lincoln said, you can't lie to all the people all the time. They've been getting away with lying to some of the people some of the time, and they've been banking on it until the judicial notice book came along and said, liar, liar, your ass is on fire, and also your British Museum, and also your Bank of England, and also your Parliament, and the rest of it. The police, what do they take an oath to? What do the three branches of the military take their oath to in a country called Britain, United Kingdom? They take an oath to protect Parliament. How does an officer and a gentleman take an oath to protect a house of lies?
If I'm now aware of this trust with police state and that it's the people giving consent, does it require many people to change this, or can I just, with my own awareness, change my own situation?
So the direct answer to that is, once you take back your power of attorney, collapse the existing trust, and as a plenipotentiary judge, educate other people. You've collapsed it for yourself. And as a plenipotentiary, you have educated the rest of the world and giving them the opportunity through the judicial notice book to be able to collapse that city-state for themselves as well. Once there is 500 people in any given state that have collapsed that particular trust and the four-corner rule, which is called a contract, and withdrawn that power of attorney, withdrawn that power of consent, they've essentially created for themselves what's known as a gene pool or a electoral college, sometimes going in by itself as a vote-in. Yeah. So that pool of people can begin to collapse an entire fraudulent company, calling itself Great Britain, calling itself United States, calling itself Canada, Australia. You can begin to collapse that, because less than 100 years ago, Australia was not called Australia. It was called Tara Australis, when it was run by another group of people known as Titans. United Kingdom at that time didn't exist. But through deception, they got people to believe you have to go into the United Kingdom rather than remain an English woman or an English man, because an English man and an English woman is the king of their castle. They are the king of their dominion. But when you move into another person's dominion, like the United Kingdom, which means United Kings and their dominion, you become a serf. So the direct answer to you is, you can collapse it for yourself. And of course, there is an effort involved. It's not like somebody puts a signature on a piece of paper and say, yeah. A turkey is still a turkey. And you'll be treated like a turkey if you behave like a turkey. But if you are honorable, and you are essentially dictating your terms and conditions through the judicial notice and the withdrawal, and also giving the Army, Navy, and the Air Force power to protect you, you begin to collapse it for yourself. And if 500 people got together, they can create an entire nation themselves. Not a city-state, not a state of the mind, because that requires, people's power of attorney. You will start to create your own nation. What is a nation? That you and I agree upon something, irrespective of distance and territory. An Englishman is an Englishman, whether he is in America, Egypt, or any other country, if that makes sense. Colloquially speaking, an American is an American in any country he goes to. He doesn't give up his nationality. It's just that he bought into a lie that Washington, D.C. is America. It is not. It is a city-state. That's why they call themselves United States. They don't even bother with the last bit, which is USA, United States of America. They don't even call themselves that. They haven't called themselves that in 25 years. But people just simply don't miss that last, should we say, family name or heir's name or a Christian name. They don't miss it. They just hear it, United States. Well, that's McDonald's Corporation. That's got nothing to do with America. So America now becomes nothing more than a pigeon box in somebody's lobby, as it were. United States of America is nothing more than a pigeon box until you come along and say, no, I'm going to bring it back out, and I'm going to bring out all the best things that was United States of America. And a new nation is now reborn again, like Tara Australis, as opposed to Australia, the corporate city-state.
Was it the intention of the spirited man to create a nation together with patrons?
Well, that would be part of it, yes. But that wasn't my intention. My intention was to give thousands of people to become patrons and champion that which is very obvious. So answering that question, the spirited man who set up the patrons, his idea was that it was to give everybody the opportunity in their thousands, if not in their tens of thousands, become patrons to that which is so very obvious, that men and women are not corporations, They have not surrendered their power of attorney. They are not subject to deceptive, creative trust being created. But really, when they wake up through the Patreons, through the judicial notice book, through the global constitution that explains the fraud in the language, that displays and reveals the fraud in the bureaucracy and how the words are toxified, weaponized against you, rather than you being the beneficiary of your own word. Like in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and my word is God. That's what they robbed you of, your ability to create things from your own word, whether that is written or verbal. Verbal contract, by the way, is the most powerful contract on this planet. It predates anything that we know of before written language entered this world. That's why in the world where you have oral traditions, like so many of the African countries, your word is your bond. It means more than anything else. That's why it is considered and was considered in Genghis Khan's court that a man or a woman's word was a bond. And you don't give up words or create them unless you want to create a bond. Yeah, they understood the value of the word. Hence, they never needed a written language. Their word was good enough, if that makes sense.